going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and today's show is going to be packed. If you were screaming at today's screen as loud as I was, then stick around. You will enjoy today's show.
So I'm about to pull the tidbits from this Marfoogle News episode where the announcements he's talking about is the new mandates, but the tidbits that I'm going to pull from it kind of show that he is also aware that this just means the timeline for pole shift has moved forward. So first we're going to watch a couple of segments from this video, the most recent video by Suspicious Observers, who I believe has some insider intel, kind of like Marf and kind of like Mr. MB3. He's the governor and the regulator of Disclosure Road, maintaining the speed limit by drip feeding this information into the consciousness of the people in order not to send them into shock. I believe Suspicious Observers here, he's definitely got the inside understanding about pole shift. Having said that, this is only a 5-minute video, and I'm only going to show parts of it. That way you can go and watch the whole thing for yourself. But as you can see, the title, Plasma Filament Solar Forcing Geomagnetic Shift, that's referring to pole shift. So you'll have to go watch this whole video for yourself. Like I said, it's only 5 minutes, but one thing I wanted to point out is this upside down flag right here in the top left corner means nation in distress. And I skipped over the part where he talks about the giant plasma filament that has 2 days of Earth facing direction coming up. And he says, you just be cool there.
Sun. Up next, we're addressing the hottest summer on record comments we're seeing around the internet. And as with every single report they give, it's the daily minimum temperatures that's breaking the record, and that's what they're plugging. Full summer temps here, bottom left, obviously the most red. But that's the nighttime temps, indicating once again that
global warming is only happening at nighttime. That's what he's going to do, and this is kind of why I think Suspicious Observers is kind of like Mr. MB3, where he says everything in a kind of a nonchalant voice, and he says, well, you know, it's not that bad if it's just at nighttime that we're experiencing the hottest summer ever. And I was saying this earlier this year when I couldn't keep fluid, coolant in my motor. And I go to the store, the truck stop, and realize they don't have a single gallon of any brand of coolant, antifreeze. That these trucks are blowing the coolant right out the radiator cap because they're constantly running hotter due to the electromagnetic radiation that connects to the densest part, which is the engine block, raising the temperature and pushing the fluid, the coolant, right out the radiator cap, which is specifically designed with a spring that has a specific pressure designed to maintain that pressure at a specific temperature. And with the increase of temperature, the pressure of the coolant increases, and it pushes that spring-loaded cap on the reservoir to open up and let the coolant out. And that's why I couldn't find a single gallon of coolant on the shelf at the truck stops when I needed some. And I was saying that this is the hottest summer ever on record while trying to get my manager to fix my air conditioner. That's what he's saying here, and he's saying that what he's comparing here is showing you that it's at nighttime. It's the lows that are higher than ever, but during the day, the daytime highs aren't necessarily higher than ever. I say that is because cloud cover. I don't know if you've noticed, but the cloud cover moves in as soon as the sun rises, and it goes away as soon as the sun goes down, like it follows the sun around the earth, which is great for stargazing, and that's why I pay so much attention. And I've noticed for a long time, it's cloudy until the sun goes down, and then the clouds disappear. And in the morning, as soon as the sun comes up, here comes the clouds again. And that accounts for the difference, because during the day, that cloud cover reduces the temperature that is being read by the thermometers and the temperature sensors, but at night, they can't reduce the temperature being read by thermometers and temperature sensors with cloud cover, so it doesn't even make sense to keep the clouds there. Even if they were there, they would not lower the temperature. And so it is at night that you can truly see that this is the hottest summer ever recorded. But during the day, they move the clouds around with the sun to keep it cool relatively. And there It isn't the hottest ever, but it's right up there within range of the most hot summers ever during the day. And it varies from place to place. But at night, there is a constant, consistent, nationwide higher temperature than ever before recorded.
Up next, we're addressing the hottest summer on record comments we're seeing around the internet. And as with every single report they give, it's the daily minimum temperatures that's breaking the record, and that's what they're plugging. Full summer temps here, bottom left, obviously the most red. But that's the nighttime temps, indicating once again that global warming is largely at night, which really isn't the worst thing in the world. Top right, that's the daily maximum temperatures, and it's just not that scary or blanketed in red. By the way, here is the month of August isolated. Same basic story of it's not getting as cool at night. Another look with Chandra here, another goose egg for axions and so we go to yet another indication that great epoch shifts in Earth's history were accompanied, if not outright triggered, by magnetic changes of the planet. Here, the entry into the Cambrian shows a wildly changing magnetic polar situation, with perhaps the shift into the modern dipole field. Now, last but not least, a fully open access article on magnetic navigation. As much as the weather, earthquakes, and radiation are going to go off the charts when the field reverses in the coming years to 2 decades, the navigational disruption.
Did you hear that? He said when the field reverses in the coming years to 2 decades. He puts this at maximum 2 decades from now is when that polar reversal will happen. And I think he knows very well that it's going to be much sooner than 20 years away.
Into species, from birds to marine creatures and even insects and mammals, is going to be like the food chain getting T-boned by a semi while riding a moped. You can learn more about these often left out biosphere challenges with our letter to the geophysical community. You can find it at spaceweathernews.com and at suspiciousobservers.org. Biosphere challenges might be a kind way of putting it. We greatly appreciate your support. Eruption watch for that plasma filament on the north. We've got wind maps and shots of our star to close. Subscribe and we'll do this all again tomorrow. Right here, but right now it's 5:30 a.m. in the new Valley of the Sun. Eyes open. No fear. Be safe, everyone.
So I'm about to pull these tidbits from what Marfugel says, and it's not the best right up first, so you'll have to stick around. That would just make it too difficult for me. I'm going to just go in chronological order through this video that I will link in the description that is the signs of what may come. And he has long said that he thinks that they see something like incoming asteroids and they know something big is coming and they are keeping it from us. You can just replace incoming asteroids with pole shift, and I think you'll be able to see from the pieces that I pull, from the things Marfugel says, that he knows, and he even explicitly says everything, including the new mandates, is actually to cover for something bigger that's coming our way that everyone knows about.
I think he says INL. Stephen Benoon says 3 asteroids to hit Earth last of November. One will hit off of Oregon in the sea, a quarter mile wide. So just to clarify, I haven't watched the movie or the video yet, but I would say that he probably didn't say it exactly like that. He's probably saying, he believes that this could happen because he's been told. If he is making, because I heard he made a claim like that. Dex I haven't talked to Stephen Benoon in a minute. But didn't he talk about this about a month ago?
Yeah, I think we were talking about it definitely a few weeks ago. This had come up before. So yeah, this is a topic that he's been covering.
I have to talk to him. I have not talked to him in over 6 months. Of course, if you have missed it, I went on his show quite a while back, probably about 1.5 years ago. So I'll have to give him a call and ask him what that's about. You know my thoughts on that. I do believe, if they've been looking this whole time, they've probably spotted something and they would know. Here's another thing. Everything that's going on, including today's press conference, it's like, were they waiting to do it until last minute and then boom? What if they do something giant or huge like this? It sounds like this is the logical step right before they do another, stay at home. So it was less than, I was told about 2 months. It's been about a month and a half. We're talking in the next 2 weeks, possibly having, because it went fast. Once it went to, these kind of things, and once they start talking like this, then all of a sudden it goes right into, okay, we need to do this. By the way, a lot of the emergency stuff is running out. So for them to keep some of these authorities, and it sounds like from today's press conference that they want to keep those, they need something. Or at least they for something big to happen, they're going to restart, and then that means that they're going to start doing the different procedures as far as us not leaving anywhere and all that. We've seen Brazil. We've seen the UK.
For a long time, I have believed that the months and months, if not a couple of years, of worldwide protests against the United States invading Iraq prior to us actually doing it was like a pressure release valve, so that by the time we did go in, everyone was all out of protest. That may be what's happening here in places like Brazil.
Brazil is something I've never seen before. The streets of Brazil were so packed, and media, for some reason, is not putting that all over the front page. Brazil with so many people, it's like you could see this from satellite. Dex, did you see some of the video of Brazil and how many people were out there?
That was huge. I mean, it reminded me of what we saw in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, but I think it was more. And Hong Kong was.
It might have been.
Hong Kong was the biggest thing I've ever seen as far as you couldn't see the ground.
In this part, he's showing how the North Korean military parade included all these guys in hazmat suits this year. And I've said since the beginning of the COVID, maybe they need us all to have masks. So when the dust gets kicked up during the pole shift, be it earthquakes and volcanoes or incoming planetary objects, we will already have our masks in our pockets in order to be able to put them on immediately. For the last month and a half here in Utah, we haven't even been able to see the mountains, but it's like smoke you cannot smell or taste. So what is it really? It's a very fine particulate, whatever it is, and people just assume it's smoke and disregard the fact that you cannot smell it or taste it.
That you could say is that that I heard is people said, well, that's a really small percentage of it. There were several of these brigades that came through. Some of them were much, 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 much bigger than this. So they have a percentage of their military wearing these hazmat suits, which who knows how good those things are.
Yeah, if you scroll to the bottom of this article, I think the other picture showed up, which shows a lot more.
So let's see here. Look at this. I mean, this looks like something out of a, Eminem video or something, or Tom McDonald video. That is creepy. This is like the NK Stan, right? So this is 2 days before the anniversary of one of the most horrible days in U.S. history, and anniversary of a Fantastic Freddy like no other. So, Of course, he's actually talking about 9/11. By Fantastic Freddy, he means false flag. That's the good thing about having a small channel. I can say things like that and decode Marf speech. Apparently, Facebook has put out a hotline to snitch on your friends and neighbors if they're too prepped. And he mentions it twice in this video. Once here in just a second, and once a little further down the road. Say, keep your heads on a swivel. And do it privately, because now they're watching for everybody to be, you can't be too aware. Do you or anybody you know anybody that's too aware? That knows their surroundings? That knows everything going on? Report it to us at 1-800-SNITCH-Facebook.
You know the meaning of get your affairs in order?
Well, we feel that it is pretty imperative. I believe it's a good thing to do. Again, I hope that people are, making their other kind of plans other than perhaps just having stuff in line. I believe that soon we will see a lot of crackdown on, the community as far as different communities. You're talking about, they're asking people on Facebook to basically shout out their friends that are too prepared. I mean, this is just weird. So again, marfugalnews.com/prep. There's all sorts of stuff. And we need to be working together. We need to push. Do you guys remember when the Fugel fam had the Discord and we were all headed in the right direction? We were all pushing each other up. We were a force to be reckoned with. People were meeting in every state. I almost thought for the first time today that we need like a, I'll figure it out in the next couple days, but I'm just going to say a day probably soon and just say, boom, let's meet here, at least for my Washington group. Because otherwise, this stuff's getting crazy. With China, they are preparing for something massive. If you can't see that, then look at everything they're doing. They have basically cut everything out in just the last 2 weeks. They've cut everything Western out of their culture. They are going back to their old ways. They're going pre-1979, and they did it in a few weeks. Do you realize what is happening right now? We're about to go to conflict. And then at the same time, today's press conference, it puts us all in this zone and we're all so mad and angry. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're all so mad and angry, we're just not even paying attention to the fact that maybe they're preparing for something way bigger.
Pole shift.
We're worried about all this other little stuff. And then, of course, today, that's a big thing, right? So that big thing has the most of our attention. And then all the smaller stuff, we're fighting with each other. We're not paying attention. We're not. There's some people that, I would love if we, it's not getting triggered is what we all need to work on. That is what really needs to happen. And like now, guys, no video games will be released for the foreseeable future in China after the government suspended their approval of all new online games indefinitely. This is just one of many things. If you haven't watched for the last week, they have cut out all English-speaking schools. Now, if you are a Chinese resident and if you want to teach your kids English, there's no longer trainings. These were huge businesses. These were million-dollar companies. They were all over the place because the only way as a foreigner that you could live in China, so most people would go over, is if you were a specialist or if you had a big corporation and you were partnered with somebody that lived there, a native-born citizen. So even if you owned a huge company, you can't just move to China unless you have a partnership with somebody there. That's part of their ingrained rules, right? So if you own a motorcycle shop or something, you have to own it as a partial owner with somebody who lives there. If you own an English-speaking training academy, which is how most people that actually do live there that are foreigners get successful, that has to be owned with a native-born Chinese person. So that they just cut out an entire industry in a couple weeks. They bankrupted their own own companies that were doing well. They made a ton of billionaires, and now they say they're taking it all back. They don't want capitalism anymore. Now they have gone overnight. If you don't know, before 1979, they didn't do capitalism. They didn't let any of their people make money, and they just reverted back to that. You know what that means, right? They're doing something completely different. This isn't just like, oh, he wants to get the people's favor of this and that. He's trying to lead the world, but again, China really can't be a good leader. Nobody likes China. Laowi86, I believe, did a great job explaining it, but I disagree with him in one place. China won't be a good leader, and they won't be able to lead, but they will damn try. And that's exactly what they're doing. And look at what NK's doing. Look at what all of them just collaborated. They just met up. They're meeting up several times. Now you have the new axis of evil. I don't think this is all propaganda. I think something is about to go down. That's my personal opinion. What's yours? Put it in the comments down below. Even if they're all working together and they're all, playing checkers or playing poker and going to brothels or whatever they do, doesn't matter. It's still going to end up looking the same to us. And this is why, they're at the end of the strings. Everything's about to collapse. That's my opinion. Stephen McMahon says, That turns into your airfields. That turns into your military bases. It would not shock me if everything we know was because of something else that is coming, preparing the world for something far worse. And maybe they agree. They said, hey, let's do this as fair as possible or something. Look at what they are doing right now. It is really hard for anybody to deny that. Venezuela. You have Venezuela and right there, 30 minutes from Florida. Of course, going Mach 2, but we've talked about that as well. So they could surround us in a second, and then Spratly Islands off of this coast, way off that is way closer than mainland China. Why do you think they built it?
And let's not forget, they not only did they convert their cargo ships and ferries for Thailand, right? We know, and we've reported in the past, that they have militarized, or the capability to militarize cargo shipping containers. And how many of those are sitting out in our waters right now, waiting to come in, right? How many of those container ships, they all come from China. I mean, they come from other places too, but come on, the majority of them are coming from China. So, if they wanted to leverage that technology, which we know that they were interested in and we know that they developed, which for those of you that aren't familiar, a couple of years ago, there was a lot of the conversation around them putting, long range and short range missile systems and other things inside containers that look like shipping containers.
Just to show you some of what Dex is talking about, this is a shipping container that has a remote control or AI-driven 50 cal or something like it. I think they call them Jack in the Boxes or something. That's their nickname. But it says HDT's Containerized Weapons Systems, CWSs, is a Tricon container optimized to provide rapid direct firepower support for combat outposts, patrol bases, forward operating bases, ports, and shipboard defense. So they have this as well. They could load up the top layer of an entire container ship with actual, weapon. I mean, it's basically like the stealthiest you can get. There's no X-ray or anything that's out in the water looking into the ships. They have no way to see that that's coming. You could bring how much stuff is coming from China right now. If we were to be attacked, it would be a surprise. They would not give us time, because guess what? How they would get most of their people and weapons over here is through containers. They would come and they would hit us with the surprise, because guess what? If we knew, we know that they have containers. How much stuff do we get shipped on these things? So let me show you another picture. They have missile launchers. They have, small arms. They have big arms. They have all sorts of stuff. They have bear arms. Let's see. All sorts of crazy stuff. So, and just so we're all clear here, this is nuclear capable missile launchers in containers. This is not only a real thing, it can go by railroad track, it can go by truck, and it can go by sea. And it's funny, didn't we just cover that we have these missile defense systems that are portable and can drive?
And Canada allows China to move military in without notifying Canada in order to protect Chinese assets that are owned within Canada.
Go everywhere. And we're shipping them all over the place. Do you remember?
And we just turned on the one from his country that they gave us.
The Iron Dome.
Yep, Iron Dome.
Wait, we're testing the Iron Dome here. That's right?
Correct. Yeah, we tested it, and they had the first successful test here on American soil, like less than a month ago. We reported it.
We're testing the Iron Dome on the U.S. soil. We're taking off and practicing taking off on highways, because guess what? Once they knock out all of your military bases and your airfields, that turns into your airfields. That turns into your military bases. It would not shock me if everything we know was because of something else that is coming, preparing the world for something far worse. And maybe they agree. They said, hey, let's do this as fair as possible or something. Look at what they're doing right now. It is really hard for anybody to deny that.
So basically, everyone knows that the pole shift is coming, and they're all jockeying for position for who's going to be king of the ash pile after the dust settles.
Didn't we report that? So India and China were going at it at the border, right? Didn't they just pull back their troops from the border?
Yeah, they did. When they, and it was also around the time that they started doing some of these other drills together. So we sort of questioned, did they get friendly?
Okay, do you realize, so they've been in this battle, I mean, it's almost like it was on purpose. China didn't declare how many died, but they launched 20 Indians off of the cliff, or that's what supposedly happened in the Himalayan mountains. They have been arguing over this border forever, and there is no actual border, right? There's no physical line between India and China. In the Himalayan mountains, they have both drawn it the way that they want it, and they both overlap, right? So their troops are here, their troops walk past, and then they end up walking backwards and running into each other, right? That's what happened. They ended up having the bloodiest kind of mix match thing there. It was getting really heated for a minute, and then all of a sudden, they pulled all troops back. We pulled troops from Afghanistan. We pulled ours back. They pulled all of their troops back after being at odds. And when we first covered, that was around the same exact time. I mean, within my opinion, prayers to Fugel fam, pray. When I talked to that DOD employee, said within 2 years, and said that was generous. Within 2 years, we'd be at a conflict with China. I feel like it's going to be like, way before that. Stephen McMahon, there is, again, there's a statistic on that. Candy Hooten, remember my email, 101st, now on rapid deployment. Timeline accelerates. Candy Hooten, I'm gonna have to pull that up. Okay, now you really have piqued my interest.